Hey there, I'm Rachel Ehring, and you're listening to the Top Music Piano Podcast. Get inspired as we discuss creative resources, trends in piano pedagogy, ways to grow your income and streamline your studio, and new ways to engage your students each week. If you are a teacher who wants to go beyond the method books to create an innovative studio that fosters lifelong music makers, you've come to the right place. Hello, piano teachers. Welcome to the podcast. I am so glad that you're joining me for this episode today. One of the struggles that pretty much every piano teacher deals with is getting students to practice at home. And perhaps even more challenging is getting them to practice effectively. My guest today has some great insights on this topic, and she also has some fantastic resources to help teachers make practicing more interesting and fun. As you will hear, Leslie is actually a violin teacher, but so many of her products and ideas translate to piano. So I wanted to have her come on and share with us today. At the age of 4, Leslie Thackeray's musical journey began when she received her first violin as a birthday gift. She pursued her passion for music and obtained a BA in music from the University of Utah. In 2000, she started her teaching career, combining her love for the violin with her enthusiasm for education. Leslie has been an active member of the Suzuki community and is a past president of the Suzuki Association of Utah. In addition, she owns the Practice Shoppe, which allows her to connect her love of music with her creativity and entrepreneurial spirit. Leslie's life is a harmonious blend of family, music, and education. Here's my chat with Leslie. Hi, Leslie. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me today. Could you introduce yourself and tell us a little about your business?
My name is Leslie. I am a Suzuki violin teacher. I started teaching back when I was in college. I've been playing the violin since I was 4, and I learned the Suzuki method, and then I started teaching Suzuki. I have 5 kids. The youngest is 12, and the oldest is 22. And about 15 years ago, wow, I can't believe it's been that long, I started the Practice Shoppe. And this is a little business I started because I wanted some things to help me practice with my own kids. I started making a bead counter, and I had to buy the supplies for that. And in order to buy the supplies, I had to kind of buy them in bulk a little bit. And then so I made some extras and asked my friends if they wanted some, and they loved it. They went crazy, and I had to buy more stuff, and it was insane because it was right around Thanksgiving when a lot of things are, people are shopping like crazy. So I found a need that people wanted some kind of things like this. And so just started the Practice Shoppe and started doing small things, and then it just has kind of grown from there.
Yeah, you have so many cute things in your shop. I was having so much fun browsing through it. And a lot of them are physical products. And actually, I know this is just audio, so our listeners can't see, but I can see on Zoom that you have it looks like shelves with all sorts of products in them behind you. Tell us about managing this aspect of a shop with so many physical products.
That has been a good evolution over the last long while. So I have always just been at home in my basement, and I used to be in this little storage room that was dark and small and squishy. And then whenever a big event, sometimes I do conferences, would happen, just my whole basement was overtaken, and it was frustrating because it was just messy and stuff like that. But last year we had a flood in our basement, and we had to redo the carpet and some other things. So while we were redoing all that, I asked to put a wall in. And so I now have this nice big office. I just have lots of shelves with lots of products, and I have all my machines, and I have big tables in the middle. And just every day I just go down and put together packages, and then also just create and make more things. And I love it. It's fun.
Wow. So are you hand making most of your products yourself?
No, I would say it's a good mix of everything. So yes, I do hand make some of them. I have manufacturing companies make some of them, and then I just purchase some things wholesale. So it's just a good mix of everything.
If you don't mind, could you just share kind of some of the categories of products on your site so listeners can get an idea, and then I'm sure they'll want to go visit your shop later, but just to give us an idea what we're talking about.
Like I said, I started with the bead counter, and a bead counter is like kind of like an abacus. It's like there's like a metal arch and it has 10 beads on it. So you can move a bead one at a time over there. So that comes in a whole bunch of different designs, and those I do hand make. I have music dice, which are just so many different kinds, but most of them are like 1 millimeter, or 1 inch dice that have like key signatures and rhythms. Then I have some smaller dice that have like the musical alphabet and also have different like smaller chunks of rhythm, like single notes. So I have the music dice. I have a lot of things that help with learning the notes. Like, so I have like a magnetic staff board, and then I have a lot of staff products or things that you can, like different ways, like different whiteboards with different numbers of staves on it or different things on a whiteboard, because I have a machine that can print on a whiteboard. I have a lot of incentive type things. Jewelry. I have these brag tag things, little keychains, stuff like that.
Yeah, like little things you could put into a prize box or give as gifts in your studio. And I really like that they're really reasonably priced, because I know if you have a big studio, you can't spend $10 on each student, right? So I found a lot of things in your shop that were very reasonably priced that you could give as little gifts or prizes to students. So I appreciated that. So you mentioned your violin teacher, but obviously so many of these products translate to piano teachers, who are my audience, or other music teachers, because we're all teaching the fundamentals of music, right? And I love the bead counter. That was one of my favorite things I saw on your website. Was you have a piano bead counter that I thought was so cute. Can you talk a little bit about how you use the bead counters with your students?
So this is probably my most used product in my own life. I used it all the time when I practiced with my kids, and then I use it all the time when I teach. So I believe as a teacher, we're not only teaching our students how to play the instrument or teaching, but also how to practice the instrument. And so one of the big things I try to emphasize is that practice a piece isn't to just play through the piece, and to find spots that I call hot spots or little wrinkles in the piece and work on them until they're easy, until they are smooth. And I hate to use the word perfect a lot of the time, but just that they're with that they can play it really easily. So when a student's like playing a piece for me and there's like a little wrinkle, I say, okay, we need to iron that out. So we come up with a measure or two, and I have them just play it over and over. And I don't even say anything. They all know, just as soon as I start being like, I pull out the bead counter, they just know, okay, I have to do it over and over. And then I really try to emphasize, like, or tell the student, when you were first playing this, it was harder for you, but did you notice that after 10 times, it became a lot easier for you? And, so I try to help them reflect on that is the best way to practice, because then they see that they can play it easier after practicing it. So I have all my students have a bead counter at home, and they can practice this way at home. So that's just basically what I use it for.
That's really helpful. I think that I need to do more of that in lessons, where I have them repeat it over and over, because my tendency is to say, okay, when you are at home, play these two measures over and over before you start from beginning to end. But I think you're right, having them do that in the lesson so they know exactly what I mean and how it feels. And then they can also see the progression of, oh, this does make it easier, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, I'm going to take that into my lessons. Tip one for me to take. So I want to talk about practicing today, because so many of your resources and products do focus around practicing. So I thought we would kind of focus on that a little bit, because it's such a struggle, as I'm sure you know, and I know as a piano teacher. Some kids just don't want to practice. Some kids don't know how to practice. So let's dive in a little bit here. How do you stress, I guess, first of all, the importance of practice at home with your students?
I mean, it just comes hand in hand with taking lessons. That's just what you do. That doesn't mean they all do it. there's a lot of ways that I try to incentivize my students to practice. And I used to use like Bach bucks and have them, they would earn them and get prizes and stuff like that. And I just haven't done that in a while, but I have like practice guides that they can use at home to work on or to kind of help guide their practice. And basically the lesson is a lesson on practicing. That's the whole focus, is how are you going to do this at home? I need to make sure you can do this at home so that you can practice it. And then also, I think unless a student, which there are quite a few students who are really intrinsically motivated to practice because they like to play or whatever. But a lot of students just aren't, right? I feel like they really need parental support, like big time. And I don't necessarily mean the parent has to practice with them, although when a child is like maybe 8 or younger, I really encourage that. The parent needs to be the one to help initiate. Can't just totally rely on the child to do it. Or to help a child come up with a plan. Like, hey, let's have a plan for practicing. How about we do it every day? You can have a little bit of time after school and then let's practice. I asked a mother, I have a student, or I have 3 students actually, who's in the same family, and the mother, they have 10 kids, and all of them that are old enough play an instrument. And they're just such good students. So I have 3 of them, and then I know a bunch of them play the cello, and then I don't know what else. But so I asked the mom, I said, how on earth you have all these kids? How do you have them practice? Because first of all, I mean, that's just, if you can't do one-on-one, or you'd be practicing all day long. And she just says, well, in our family, it's just really important. And every day at 4:30, we just practice. So-and-so goes in their room. This person goes in the piano room. This one they double up and they practice together. And I'm just was like, well, wow. I mean, she's got it. So it's the parent who has created a good environment for practicing. And as a parent myself, I have a 12-year-old who doesn't practice very well. And I kind of feel like, okay, what do I need to do to help her? I just try to come up with different things because she doesn't love to do it. But I've asked her if she wants to stop, and she's like, no, I want to keep playing. So she has the desire to play, but it's just practicing is really hard.
Yeah. And I think some parents feel at a loss if they aren't musicians themselves, because they feel like they should know how to read the notes, or they should know exactly what their child should be doing. So how are you having conversations with those parents who aren't musicians to help empower them to help their child?
One of the philosophy of Suzuki is that every child can learn, whether or not the parent is a musician or not. So if a parent doesn't know anything about music, they still are like human, and they are adults, and they know how to organize, hopefully, their time a little bit, or how to, like I said, when a student is starting out, or especially when they're younger, if a parent can be there to help guide the practice a little bit, doesn't mean teaching them how to play, doesn't mean saying, okay, play the F sharp, play the whatever. It means, okay, you're going to play this piece. Let's practice one of the hot spots 10 times, and maybe B is the one that turns the beat counter over. And then also to kind of emphasize, I really try to tell my students that they don't always have to get everything perfect the first time they practice. Like, do it this many times, and if it's still hard, that's okay. Just leave it, and then we'll work on it the next day. And to help guide the practice to make sure they're getting things accomplished, everything that the teacher asks. I don't think because the parent doesn't really need to be the teacher at home specifically, but should be a guide for younger students. No, and I do really encourage students to practice on their own so that the instrument and the musicality becomes part of them. But that's still, a parent can help encourage and can help come up with ways to organize the time so it's easier for a student to practice.
Yeah, helping them create that routine and just the good habits that are going to lead to good practice. I'm curious, do you mark those hot spots in the music in a certain way so they know where to practice?
The easiest way I do it is just a parenthesis, but I also have this highlighting tape that's removable. I love using this because so it just looks like a roll of tape, but it's colored, all different colors. And I'll just put it on the music. I'll be like, okay, all your hot spots are in pink. You need to practice these spots 10 times each every day. And then when they play through their piece the next week, if I didn't even notice, because I'm not always looking at the music while they're playing, I'm looking at them, and I didn't even notice that was a problem the next week, I'll just take that little piece of highlighting tape off and I'll be like, you did it. You fixed that one. Let's keep working on this one though, or whatever like that. So that's basically how I do it. I also keep track of what my students, I have a Google Doc of my lesson notes. That's so the parents can know what's going on, because I share it with them, especially if they're not in the lesson. And so a lot of times I'll put measure numbers and stuff like that. But that's way more laborious, because then you have to look at the number, then you have to find the number, and then all that kind of stuff. It's easiest to parenthesis or highlight or whatever. So
yeah, I like that practice tape. Do you sell that in your shop, or is that something you just get at Home Depot or Office Depot or somewhere?
I do.
Maybe Home Depot. I don't know.
Yeah.
Did you say you sell it?
Yeah, I do. Uh-huh.
Okay. I need some of that, because I don't want to use markers in my kids' books, but I like that idea of the removable tape.
Oh, yeah. And it's fun. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Top Music Pro enables you to be a pro in your own studio, because you don't have to reinvent the wheel and you don't have to make up all the answers yourself. You have support.
I think of Top Music as the pot of gold at the end of a rainbow. This site is the whole pot of gold, and there's gold pieces in there that I didn't even know existed.
I am actually teaching a full studio. They're coming online from miles away, so I am certainly thriving.
So what Tim has done is build a global community of piano teachers who are interested, who are engaged. And when you become part of this community, you feel empowered.
My life is different now because I'm not just in an isolated little studio. I have learnt that there are other people out there going through very similar learning curves and sharing these ideas.
I've really gained a lot of skill sets where my teaching is far more creative, far more innovative. I have resources so that I can add to it things that I didn't know.
My life and my business are different now because I have the three things that I really wanted: less stress, more money, and more time.
It's going to be fun. Like, I got excited about being a piano teacher. It's revolutionized everything that I do.
I think I've become a more thoughtful teacher, a more organized teacher. The quality of my teaching has deepened.
I feel like I can do this. I feel a sense of hope. I love the creativity it fosters and the openness to thinking outside the box, and it's energizing.
Joining Top Music really solidified that. Like, no, this is your career and you can make a career out of this. That has really helped me be proud of what I do.
It's made such a tremendous impact on the way I think about teaching. It keeps your mind open when you have so many ideas.
My best win from being on Top Music Pro is just having a lot more peace of mind as a teacher and as a business owner. It just gives me that less amount of hours that I have to do with research and everything.
It's a really good place to spend a few pounds, a few bucks a month. What you get from it far outweighs what you have to pay into it.
My biggest win with Top Music Pro was increased student retention and increased income. I have a lot more confidence in how I'm teaching, and I have the resources that I need when I do have questions.
I probably went from about 35 students to maybe like 65. I ended up doing 3 classes and I had a waiting list.
If I hadn't signed up with Top Music Pro, I probably wouldn't have realized that teaching piano is a real job and you can build your whole career around it.
Do you have any tips for making practicing seem less like a chore, less like homework, and more just something that, I don't know. I mean, of course we want these kids to love playing their instrument, right? And eventually enjoy the process, but how do we get them there?
So I have a couple different things that I will use. First of all, I have in my studio 100 days of practicing plaque. So it's just this big plaque with all these little brass kind of plate things. And then whenever a student practices 100 days in a row, they get their name on this plaque. I don't always talk about it all the time, but I have it there in the studio. And a lot of times the student will look at it and be like, oh, what's this? And I'll be like, oh, you want to start practicing 100 days in a row. Let's try that. And then you can get your name on the plaque. And then if you keep going, and if they practice a year, they get their own plaque. And I keep it on my wall. They don't get it. So, but, and so they see all these plaques of like all my past students that have practiced so much. So that's a really good motivation for some people. Not everyone, but some people. Another thing I like to do is just kind of make it a game. And it can be an easy game. It doesn't have to be a big, hard, fancy game. But one of the easiest but most successful games is just a bingo game where I had a blank bingo card and I would write everything they needed to practice on the bingo card. And then I would put everything on like little pieces of paper and they would just draw them out of a bag or whatever. And so they draw this piece and they practice that piece, and then they get to mark it on the bingo card. And when they get bingo, they're done. So that was so then it becomes a little bit of a game. So I would just say, I mean, we're competing with their time with like sports and screen time. And just so to make it like a game, if you need to, is a fun way to do it, to get them to practice. But that does take a little bit of effort on a parent's part, right? And a lot of times a game or something will lose its sparkle after like a week or so. So it's just kind of constantly thinking of what you can do to make it more enjoyable.
Yeah. And I think as parents, knowing our kids too and what motivates them, like my son, for whatever reason, seems to be motivated by money. Like I could probably pay him to practice and he might be more successful. Or toys. He loves toys too. So knowing like what they're going to get excited about, right?
Well, and yeah, so even just coming up with smaller incentives, like 100 days is actually, I mean, that's 3 months, more than 3 months. And that's really hard to do for a lot of people. But even the smaller practices, like I remember sometimes I'd have a little practice jar. I have a lot of like printable things that you can download from my website. Just those are things that I've used throughout the years. But like a practice chart, like there will be like 14 frogs on it. And every day they practice, they get to put a sticker on it. And then just when they're finished, it's just like, okay, well, we're going to go, we have a bakery by my house. Let's go get a cookie at the bakery together. And it's just fun to have a little like reward for practicing. And then they have kind of some like motivation to get it done.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's a good idea. So we've talked about the practice trackers and some of your other resources. Are there any other resources that you want to highlight or tell us about that piano teachers might be interested in?
Well, I have this magnetic staff board that's like probably my second most used item in my studio. It's kind of bigger than it's bigger than paper, like might be the size of like my laptop if I were to put my laptop on its side. And so it can fold up to fit in a bag, but then you open up and it would fit like right there on the piano. And it comes with these magnetic like circles, and some of the circles have note names, like musical alphabet names. What I put 2 staves on it, and that was so that like a pianist could use it as a grand staff, or any instrument, violinist, cellist, violist, or whatever, with all the treble, bass, or alto clef staves or staff could use. Anyway, I use those all the time. I talk about like triads, and I'll like put like the scales or arpeggios. Anytime we're talking about like steps and skips or intervals or anything, it's just so easy to just kind of, you have the magnets there. It's also whiteboard. So if it's easier just to write it with a marker, you can do that. I use it to talk about key signatures. I feel like I have to repeat myself so many times on how to find how to figure out a key signature. I tell my students all the time, and they still are like, I don't know, maybe I'm not doing it right. I like to have them visualize it. And, so I'll put like, let's just say we're talking about the key of G. I'll put like an F sharp up there, and I'll put a little circle a half a step above on the G. And I'll be like, see, they're all like this, and they all memorize the order of sharps, F, C, G, D, A, B. And so I'll be like, okay, let's do 4 sharps. So we'll put 4 sharps on there. I'll put one of the little circle dots right above the last the last sharp, and I'll be like, look, you just go half a step above that last sharp and you can tell the key. And anyway, I just like the visual. I love using visual things that you can touch, things that they can use different senses besides just their sight and their ears. So using the physical touch a lot during lessons and stuff.
Yeah, I love all of those tactical things too. Are there any products that you've been surprised that have been a big hit with your students?
I don't know if I've been surprised. There are some things, like I have this little rhythm race game, which is a super easy, simple game where there's a little game board with like a racetrack kind of thing. And we throw a little musical dice, a rhythm dice that has like whole note, dotted quarter note, or dotted half note, a half note. Anyway, and then you roll it and you move that many spaces. And I have a student that just loves this game. And if we could play it the whole time, she would just play it over and over. And she's, 7, I think. I don't know. It just resonates with her for sure. So just little things like that make it. If I play a game like that, I try to do it at the end. So it's like the reward for a good lesson. And then I feel like we really end on a good note. And I think some of my students really like that. Some parents like that. So
yeah, it's always nice when you have a game that actually is like reinforcing a concept or teaching a concept and that they love. I have a little student who we have this space race game, and he asks for it almost every week. Like there was a period of time for probably several months where we had to play that game at the end of every single lesson because he just loved it. And it was helping him learn his notes on the keys, or his keynotes. So yeah, I love stuff like that too. Is there anything else you want to share with listeners before we wrap up?
I'm always open to ideas. I love it when people share with me something that they would like to see, because I don't know. I think there's something about, I like to create things. I have a few different machines that help me create some of these products. And I like to figure out how to get things made. And so a lot of this stuff, if I don't use it personally myself, is because it comes from the recommendation of someone else. So, if there's ever anything that's like, I would really love to see something like this and kind of describe it, I will think about it and I'll just see if it's just like gives me a little thought on how I can make that come to pass. It's just something that's really enjoyable to me. So this business is like kind of like a job, obviously, but it's also just, I love doing it. It's like a hobby too for me. It's so fun to think of things and create things. So, I love teaching and I love music, but this is also just another part of my life that I just love to create things and make things and stuff like that. So yeah, if you have any ideas of something that you've always thought would be really cool, let me know and we'll see if we can come up with something.
Yeah, you teed me up perfectly for my last question, which is, where can listeners find you and get in touch with you and find all these great resources and reach out to you?
Yeah, so my website's thepracticeshoppe.com, which has the, and also you spell shop, SHOPPE. So thepracticeshoppe.com is my website. And I'm also on Instagram and Facebook at The Practice Shoppe. I think you can just email me at The Practice Shoppe, Leslie at The Practice Shoppe. And then I think I have my contact information on my website, email and stuff like that. So yeah, that's the best way.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Leslie. It's been fun chatting about practicing and getting to know you a little bit today. And I hope listeners check out The Practice Shoppe and see all your beautiful resources. So thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you all for listening today. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Leslie. I really appreciated what she said about the lesson being a lesson in how to practice. I think that is so valuable for us to hear. We can't expect our students to know how to practice unless we are actively teaching them how to practice at home. Over on the Topcast this week, Tim did an interview with Brian Shepard, who's the new CEO of MTNA, so be sure to check out that episode as well. That's the end of the show for this week. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I will look forward to talking with you again next time.
How do you keep up to date with all the latest trends and research into music education? How do you connect with other teachers around the world and make sure your teaching stays fresh and relevant for students of all ages and stages both now and into the future? I created our Top Music Pro membership to be the one-stop shop for music teaching resources, training, support and community, and I'd love for you to come and join us inside. With over 40 comprehensive training courses, hundreds of teaching demonstrations and lesson plans, free monthly sheet music, discounts and all the business and pedagogy support you could ever need, Top Music Pro is the community you've been looking for. If you're ready to level up your learning from the podcast and join thousands of other teachers in our global network, head over to topmusicpro.com today.